Good.
Good afternoon, everyone. Chris Berryman here, coalition builder and founder of Bringing Humanity Together. Welcome, everyone, to our Bringing Humanity Together live stream here on LinkedIn, YouTube, and now on Twitter. This is one of the three open forums for the Bringing Humanity Together umbrella where people can discuss topics related to the workplace, humanity in the workplace in a very positive and constructive way. We want to know what the issues are that are out there that people are facing because it's our goal and truly our mission and our purpose to work with both employers and employees to bring humanity back into the workforce. And as always, we always will be going live every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, all at 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, except for Conversations for Humanity. We have a meet and greet at 2:45. So as you see here, Sandy Chernoff hosts Sharon K. with Sandy Chernoff on Tuesdays. I host Conversation for Humanity on Wednesdays. And then here is our host today, Carla Fedigan for Humanity Happy Hour. So as you jump on, feel free to comment in the chat where you're jumping on from. We'd love to have a great and engaging conversation with you wherever you actually are watching us from. And just to let you know, we can have multiple people on the live stream at this time because we can have more access to more platforms. So we would love to hear from you, whether it be Twitter, whether it be YouTube, wherever. We would love for you to be joining us on the live stream with us today. And we'll put the live stream link into the chat wherever you guys are at and also on screen so you guys can join us. So feel free to comment in the chat and we'll have someone monitoring YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn Live and do that. So I will pass it off to my great host with the mostest, Carla Fedigan. Carla, how you doing today?
Hey, Chris, how are you? Doing great. I want to have a shout out to Nestine. Thanks for joining us today. Feel free to jump on the live call if you'd love to. We'd love to have you. Thought one of the topics that we talk about today is burnout. I work with a lot of nurses that are looking to up their health and wellness, and one of the things they complain about is burnout. And there's a lot of people out there that try to teach them survival skills. And that's all well and good, but I don't want to go to work just to survive. And 76% of the U.S. employees are experiencing burnout these days. And of course, recent events like COVID certainly haven't helped that at all. They've not been able to compartmentalize their day into that 9 to 5 and not worry about the rest of life. And now a lot of people are working from home and they're under a lot of stress and they've got kids at home and different things going on. And it's certainly created a lot of stress for people. And a lot of people think that that's just a personal thing, that it's just something you're going through personally. You need to eat better. You need to get better sleep. You need to do yoga. You need to do deep breathing. Well, that's all well and good for your overall health, but it really doesn't do anything to help with burnout. And I think it needs to be more on a corporate level. It needs to be a joint partnership in making sure that the work environment is the best that it can be, to help prevent that. There's actually a study that I was looking at that looked at the medical community and in terms of burnout, because we're just such a compassion-driven profession. And they said that doctors and nurses were the most susceptible to burnout, even to the extent that the suicide rate was 40% higher in men and 130% higher in women. So to me, that says that we need to do something jointly to look at this problem called burnout, that it's not just an individual thing, it's something that everybody is experiencing. And when we're looking at the workplace, if you don't have a burnout plan, you're inviting trouble, because I know we've talked about this before. If you've got employees that are burnt out and they're wanting to leave, you're going to have higher turnover. If you've got employees that are burnt out, they're going to be less productive. If you have employees that are burnt out, they're going to have more illnesses. They're going to have more time away from work. And when they're burnt out and they have more issues like anxiety, depression, issues with stress that are affecting their health, that are making them go to healthcare in the United States, they're going to healthcare providers more often, and that's going to lead to more insurance claims. For a company, that's going to also increase their healthcare costs. So I know it's not like in Canada, but in the United States, Sandy, every year before your corporation or your company is searching for who's going to carry their insurance for the next year, they'll send out a questionnaire. And it's basically you need to check off all the things, or you go online. You check off all the things that you have issues with. Is it weight? Is it blood pressure? Are you smoking? Whatever. There's a whole long list of it. And then what they do is they compile all that data and they actually look at okay, for Corporation X, this is what your healthcare costs are going to be for us to be able to provide insurance to your employees. So it goes direct to reason, the higher healthcare issues you have, and a lot of them are caused by burnout, the higher your healthcare costs are going to be. There was another study that showed that there was a 63% increase in sick days because people were burnout and having difficulties at work. 25% more visits to the ER. That's going to increase your healthcare costs for an organization. And for you as an employee who's paying a part of those insurance costs, people wonder why their deductibles are hitting $3,000, $4,000, and $5,000 a year just to pay, X amount per paycheck for their insurance, even though it's shared with the company. It's because healthcare costs money. It costs to keep the lights on. It costs money to provide medical care. So it goes to show if you work better towards preventing burnout and you also work better towards helping people be healthy in the workforce, you're going to reduce your insurance costs, not only for you as a company, but for you as a person. The less you have to go to the doctor, the less you have to go to the ER, the less your copays are. It's plain and simple. So, I say keep yourself healthy for so many reasons, that burnout is something that we all need to be working on. The company and the employee. Why are your employees feeling burnout? Why are they feeling stress? And a lot of times they say that a lot of the reasons for top burnout is unfair treatment at work, unmanageable workload, lack of role clarity. They think that they're supposed to be doing this and they're not doing their job as we were told. Then maybe they've been doing a job that they thought that they were doing right, and then it comes up for review and they're getting their hands slapped for something that nobody told them about that they've been doing wrong for 3 months. Why don't you go back and correct that 3 months? Like, why in the hell are you even telling me about this now? It's common sense. Lack of communication. We're always talking about the need for communication and how important that is, and getting support from your leadership. So, we talk about communication and support from leadership in a lot of different areas. It's important to prevent burnout as well. Unreasonable time pressure. Organizations think that maybe a procedure can get done in 15 minutes. When we did this for years in fertility, they thought that they could see patients every 10 minutes. And I said, you can't even get a woman in and out of the room, going to the restroom and changing clothes in 10 minutes. Oh, I know, but it's going to work. Okay, well, we'll see how that's going to work. And they always wonder, why are we running behind? You can't get a woman into the room, go to the restroom, have her get undressed, be ready, do your exam, and get her dressed and out of that room and turn it over in 10 minutes. It just doesn't work, So, there's other industries where everybody's got that time crunch. We're going to do so many things in whatever time period is, and they're not realistic. And people are killing themselves trying to stay caught up, and they can't because it's not humanly possible. So those are just some of the things, and I thought that that would be a good thing that we could discuss today, and also look at some of the things that leadership could do to help prevent burnout.
Well, I totally love this topic, Carla. Thank you for bringing it up today for the table of humanity to discuss. For me, burnout is real. It truly is. And there were many, 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 many years for me that I got burned out very quickly. And even the organization didn't even see it and realize it. I recognized it truly right off the bat. I was at my wit's end. I knew I had to, I'm like, I'm done. And you're absolutely right. It goes right into turnover. It goes right into mental well-being, your physical well-being, everything. I had all that and then some and more when I was working uh, in my younger days at the restaurant and retail sectors, and I've seen it firsthand. And I truly believe that in one way, shape, or form, people at the high levels of an organization should recognize that the people who are doing the due diligent work of what they do each and every single day have to be, like I said, shown the very value that they should be shown, number one. And number two, really get to know your people to such an extent when those problems come up. Sometimes it's like when you go onto a cruise ship or a hotel. Sometimes the things that you are wanting to have done, most often than not, they'll do it for you before you even ask. And I think that's what we should probably be cognizant of and start thinking of. Hey, let's be proactive versus reactive.
The other thing that's a problem with burnout is that not only are you mentally and physically having problems, but when you are in a poor mental state, you're going to make more mistakes and you're not going to be as effective. And that's going to reduce your productivity greatly. And so it's a matter of recognizing these things and acknowledging people for their contributions and checking up on them to make sure that they are clear on what they're supposed to be doing so that they won't be wasting their time doing something poorly or inappropriately or whatever it is. And that all boils back down to communication, Carla. I mean, if people are clear, and if people are not asking enough questions to make sure that the clarity is coming through, then we're going to have different kinds of issues. And as we've spoken about many times before, turnover is very expensive for an organization because it means you've got to get a recruiter to find more people for you. You've got to spend time doing interviews. And in the meantime, while that person isn't there, the extra load goes on to the other people that are in the organization, and that's going to cause more burnout. I mean, it's a matter of looking at what kind of problems are you causing by not providing an appropriate work environment for your people. And, you know, in dentistry, it's not quite the same as medicine, but we also work on a very tight schedule because, you know, everyone has an appointment and it's a certain length of time. But if you run into a problem or if the patient is late, you know, there are all kinds of issues that can impact very badly on your day and make it stressful for the operator. So it's a matter of you know, trying to figure out how you can do whatever you need to do, even though sometimes your time frame may be reduced or whatever. And one of the things that we used to stress with the patients was that they needed to come on time or even come a little bit early, because maybe sometimes I would finish a little early and I could come in early, you know, whatever. But it's a matter of understanding that there are time frames, you know, and I used to see my adult patients were every hour, kids usually just a half an hour. But it's just a matter of how is your day being scheduled and how is it working? And if people come when they're supposed to come, then everything's cool. But if they don't, then your schedule gets screwed up, and that's very stressful. So, you know, it just depends what's going on. And that's the reason why a team is important, because if somebody can help you with something, like, you know, maybe to save a little time, if somebody else could do the x-rays on the patient, or if somebody could at least develop them, or, you know, whatever. That's what a team is. we work together, we help each other. And if we can do that, there will be less burnout. But it's a matter of what are we trying to do? And yes, a lot of this does fall onto the leadership, because if they're not running a good organization, then the employees are going to suffer. And it just is. And again, if people do something, thank them. It's not that hard. Just acknowledge their contribution, especially if they came in early or they stayed late. Because if you don't, they'll never do it again, because they'll figure you didn't notice and you don't care anyway. So why would they bother? So it's a matter of paying attention and communicating things in an appropriate and clear and impactful manner, so that people do know what's expected of them, and then they can rise to the occasion. It's just, it's a matter of how do we deal with people. And unfortunately, as I've mentioned before, very, very few training courses, whether they're professional or they're vocational or they're technical, actually include people skills. They don't include communication skills. They don't include stress management and time management and things that would help us to be better organized and therefore accomplish more and be more productive. But most of those things are not taught. So if we're going to have a good organization, maybe it would be a good idea to bring in a trainer and teach them some of these things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we used to have a cancellation policy that if people needed to be, if you were a new patient, you needed to be there 30 minutes ahead of time. So if you're scheduled at 9 a.m., you had to be there at 8:30, and that gave you time, time to be a few minutes late if you got stuck in traffic. And we knew that it would take, so much time to get a copy of your ID and your insurance card and sign the HIPAA forms and all that kind of stuff, to where you were done and you were ready to be seen at 9 o'clock. And now we had that policy, and we, would work on enforcing it. The patients would be falling apart and they're like crying at the check-in area because they're late, and the physicians would cave and it would throw off the whole day. And then the physicians were upset. I said, well, you did it to yourself, you shot yourself in the foot, So
well, it's a matter of, looking at how do you plan your day. I mean, we talked about it before. You got to make a plan. I mean, it just is how it is. And if you're going to get things accomplished.
And they used to say, you have 10 minutes with a patient after I'm done with them to give them the information. And they come looking at you like, I have no idea what the hell they just said to me. And it's like, well, what do you want me to do? Just throw them information? Or you want me to teach them something?
And see, Carla and Sandy, that is why we got to have clarity in our communication. We got to be intentional to such an extent, even when we see that the burnout's happening to those individuals, or if someone's coming in for a doctor visit and they don't really look like, it's like a deer in headlights and everything like that. They just don't know what's happened to them. We need to, like I said, take the time with these people to communicate in very simple terms, very simple ways, so they can understand this is what's going on, or we can relate. You're not alone in this. I'm sure there's a lot of people in a leadership position that really gets burnt out too as well. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely.
Because a lot of times they're told by higher up that this is the rhythm we're supposed to keep in the organization, and you got to make it work. And so that burnout that they have is passed down to the other people that are struggling trying to keep up as well. And it could be something as easy as the system is not efficient.
Right. And for me, in the realms of restaurant, especially in restaurant, and also it's probably the same way in retail too, because I've been in retail for over 10 years. That pressure is mounting up from the very top. And what happens is, like what you said yesterday, Sandy, about the snowball effect, that keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it's got to go somewhere. So, the way I view it is, how do we take that, what we perceive as a problem, and turn it from a negative into a positive. How do we do that? Well, first and foremost for me, I'll just let it go by me. And then I'll look at it and analyze it and say, hey, why did this occur? Number one, how did we get to this point? Number two, and what's the cause of the matter? Not the things that you have to do to say, hey, oh, she didn't do this or he didn't do that, and doing the finger pointing thing. No, just objectively and rationally go into the step by step of what you would rationally will go through. And if you still can't come up with that answer, you go to say, hey, Sandy, Carla, I don't know what went on here, but I think we have an issue. How do you perceive this to be? And
yeah, why is the process not working?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, not pointing fingers as, well, you took too long at check-in and you took too long getting vital signs and what do you mean you let me go to the restroom? You know, that kind of thing. It's not finger pointing. It's like, let's look at the system and figure out why it's not working.
Well, and the other thing is, you know, you've got to take into consideration you're dealing with people. You know, people are different. People look at things differently. And it's a matter of organizing it in a way that we can all survive and not, you know, go crazy. But the other thing that can happen, Chris, when people are having problems is maybe they need to seek some outside help so that they can resolve the problem. And that's where our group comes in. Because if we can sit down with a prospect that's struggling with some kind of issue, whatever it may be, and determine very specifically what they're looking for, then we can customize a program to provide them with some new strategies, approaches, skills, etc., so that their people will not be burning out and that they can get things back on track so that everybody is functioning more effectively and more efficiently, and then they'll have less burnout and less turnover and less high medical insurance costs and so on and so forth. It's a matter of looking at what is the problem and what can we do to fix that problem. So if they can't figure it out for themselves, they need to bring in somebody from the outside who can provide them with those answers.
Because once you fix the problem, then that's going to make everything else better. It's going to decrease your turnover. It's going to increase your productivity, and it's going to decrease the amount of sick time that people are taking or mental health days.
Yeah.
You know, because
rocket science. I mean,
yeah, you know, they came up with paid time off days in the United States because they kind of felt that people needed a mental health day. This was years ago, you know, but you know, the bad thing about that is, okay, I would rather use my PTO to know I'm going on vacation at certain periods during the year, you know. Stay healthy. I'm not sick. I don't have to take sick days. I'm not calling in on the fly or anything like that. Why not work on that in terms of preventing burnout to where people are not taking mental health days? Because if you take that mental health day, calling in sick, that kind of breaks. That's like a chink in the kink in the chain to where somebody's got to pick up that slack, you know. If you're a patient care coordinator and you're making appointments with patients and getting them set up for procedures and things like that, and they've got to call 3 different other people, that puts a lot of stress on the other people that are covering for you, just for you to take a mental health day. Why do you need that mental health day? What's going on in the workplace that's causing that to happen?
Exactly.
Fix that.
Or there's a better question to ask too as well, Carla. What is happening in your life in relationship with work is affecting you, that's dragging you down, not getting you motivated to go to work every day, not falling in line with your passion and purpose and everything. I think that's a great thing to even ask too as well.
A lot of people in leadership or management don't want to know.
Well, that's a mistake.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this then, ladies. Isn't it the human thing to do is to be compassionate with everyone that you meet, whether to be in a business dynamic setting, you're at a community barbecue or whatever, Isn't that just the right thing to do?
Yeah.
Sure.
Do we take it to the workplace? Not
So
always.
why don't we do that?
Because
Because they want things to get done. Like, I don't want to know about that. Just get the work done. This is what we got to do. Let's get the work done. That's the mindset.
and it's just, it doesn't work.
And it doesn't work.
No, it just doesn't work. So it's a matter of understanding. You got to step back and you got to figure out why people are burning out and why they're having so much trouble so that we can get rid of that problem. And if we can get rid of that problem, we won't have people being sick and we won't have people burning out and leaving and so on and so forth. Because if they're having a better time at work and they're enjoying themselves more, they're going to be more efficient and more productive, and we'll have far less downtime. Far less downtime.
It reminds me of when I worked in fertility. I was really happy that I could be there to offer services to people, but I would be even happier if they didn't need my services. So this is almost the same thing. We have a wonderful opportunity to offer these services to people to help them figure out what their problems are and to help them work with burnout or anything else, communication, whatever it is. I'd be totally happy that they didn't need us because that meant that people were happy going to work.
Exactly.
And that the problems were solved.
And as we've discussed before, there are over 70% of people who hate their jobs. And as adults, we spend more time at work than we spend anywhere else. So if people hate their jobs, basically they hate their lives. And that's a terrible way to live. It's just a terrible way to live. You should enjoy your job. You know, get pleasure from it. Enjoy the people that you work with. Enjoy the people that you're helping through work, whatever. I mean, if you can't do that, what the heck are you doing?
Yeah.
You know, it's just, what kind of life is that?
I'm trying to think when it was that I actually heard the term burnout in relationship to healthcare. I can't even remember when it was. Maybe late 90s. And I don't even know exactly how it actually became, but I remember I used to think, oh, I don't have that. I'm good. You know, I'm surviving. And then when I left healthcare, I lost 8 pounds in 2 weeks just from the stress off my shoulders that I didn't realize it was there, that I lived with, that I thought was just the normal. Whether it be traffic going to work, work stress, traffic coming home from work, organizing life, and being overscheduled. The minute that was off my plate, I lost 8 pounds in 2 weeks and I didn't even try. And it was because of stress.
Yeah. Stress is very hard on us, and people need to understand it's hard on your immune system. It's hard on your mentality. It's hard on you physiologically because all sorts of bad things start happening, and a lot of it is irreversible. So it's got to pay attention to what's causing you stress and get rid of it.
Stress can kill you.
To deflect it. It can.
Mm-hmm.
Just a matter of understanding that.
But ladies, this is probably the better the better question to ask, even maybe even a bigger question to ask. Is our burnout preventable?
Well, you have to look into what's causing it, Chris, and if you can find out what's causing it and you can get rid of what the cause is, then there won't be any more burnout. But it's something that needs to be looked at, because if the problem isn't looked at, you're going to destroy your whole organization. That's ultimately what will happen. So, you know, it's very important to deal with problems and solve them. Because if you're not, then you're going to continue to have problems, which means that you will have turnover and you will have high insurance costs and all sorts of other things, because you're not dealing with what's causing issues for your people. Not a good way to run your business or your practice, whatever it is. It's just not good. And, you know, people are difficult. There's no question about that. There's a lot of difficult people that you have to deal with, no matter what your job is. And you have to find ways to allow yourself to not let that get to you, because it's not about you. It's about them. And it's a matter of finding strategies and approaches and communication styles to deal with these people so you can find out what's making them crazy so that maybe you can alleviate that, and then maybe they'll be easier to deal with. And I only say maybe, because a lot of these people have had bad things happen to them. And that's why they've built this nasty armor around themselves, because they don't really want it to happen again. It's not about you. Everybody gets the same treatment from them. But it's a matter of understanding that with some of them, we will be successful, and with some of them, we will not. So sometimes you just maybe have to just get rid of a client or a patient because we're just not going to be able to deal with them effectively. And all they're going to do is cause discomfort and stress and anxiety to our people. And that's not good. And sometimes you just have to say, I'm very sorry, we can't help you. Bye-bye. Yeah, sometimes you have to do that. But it's a matter of understanding. There are approaches for some of these situations. There are ways of dealing with these people. But the most important thing you have to do with them is you got to listen so that you can figure out what the heck the problem is. And after you've discerned that, then you can say, stop, just a second. I'm here to help you. So let me just make sure that I'm clear on what your problem is. Is this what's bothering you? You know, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, good. Here's what I can do about it. And I will also get my manager to come over so that they can do something else for you, you know, whatever. But it's a matter of letting them know that you are paying attention to them. You are listening to them. You do want to help them. And that can change the way they relate to you. It doesn't always work, but you have a far better chance if you listen very carefully to them. If you start yelling back at them, you're done. You're done. I mean, we're finished here. Nothing's going to happen. Just the two of you are going to have a screaming match. Well, I'm sorry, that doesn't work. And it's going to make everybody else who's around very uncomfortable. So we don't even want to go there. So again, the most important thing to do with these difficult people is shut up and listen.
Are you talking about clients or are you talking about employees?
Both, Carla. It's a matter of, you know, paying attention and giving them feedback to show them that you respectfully listen to them. So far, this is what I heard. Is this correct? Are we on the same page? It's a matter of making ourselves clear to them and making sure that we did hear what they were sending and that we are on the same page so that we have a chance of helping them or working with them more effectively or whatever the heck it is. If we don't do that, we're never going to move forward, and it's just going to be ugly for everybody. And that's what happens in a lot of situations because, again, people don't know how to communicate effectively, and they're not listening. You can't talk and listen at the same time. It doesn't work. So if you're going to find out what is making them grouchy, then you have to listen very carefully to whatever it is they're telling you.
So let me ask you this then, to each of you. How long did it take you to either see someone who was suffering from burnout, and if that was the case, how long did it would take you to say, hey, are you okay? This, that, and the other. And what did you do to help them get out of that rut, so to speak? Did you ever come across that in the time that you guys worked, whether it be in dental hygienistry or in nursing? How was that for you guys?
Well, I think, Chris, again, it boils down to listening. And if you don't listen to the person, you can't find out what's making them crazy. And if you're working with people and they're not acting like you know they normally are, in other words, if their demeanor has changed, you might want to sit down with them and ask them what's going on. Because, you know, there could be something that isn't even related to work. Maybe it's something that's going on at home. Maybe they've got a sick parent or a sick kid and, you know, they're stressed out because they can't do all the things they need to because they have this other issue going on. Well, you know, maybe they need to take a little time off and deal with whatever it is at home. And so maybe we have to give them that time off to do that. But it's a matter, again, you got to listen and you got to ask questions. What's going on? This isn't like you. You know, this is not your normal demeanor. It's not your normal behaviors. What's going on? How can we help you? You know, and if we do that, then we have a far, far better chance of solving it. But you got to start somewhere.
Well, I mean, there may be like, well, you have to think of it in terms of if somebody says to you, well, my husband just left me or whatever, or I'm in an abusive situation, as a leader, you need to know those kind of things, because you never know if that ex-husband is going to show up at the workplace and raise hell. And then that puts everybody else at risk. So, as an employee, if you've got a situation like that's happening, you need to be letting management know about it. I mean, you've heard of episodes where someone's in an estranged marriage or relationship, and one of the partners comes in and starts firing at somebody's place of work, and people are killed, and no one had a clue what was going on with those kind of situations. But I mean, you can have stress at home, and that's going to in turn affect your work, and it's going to affect your productivity. That's going to affect your days off that you're taking or whatever. That is something outside of work, and that's a little bit different than burnout because of the processes that you're dealing with in the workplace.
And I completely agree with that.
That will determine your approach.
Right. And like I said, I completely agree with that, because I've actually had many friends in my past had either their significant others, or, as you said, others come into the workplace and start raising holy right in the front of a restaurant, or I even seen that happen into a retail store, and things got ugly quick.
Yeah, they escalate quick.
Yeah, they do. But then again, for me at least, there's always a time and place for everything. If you're going to go out and do those kind of things to kind of like one up your ex-husband or your ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend or whatever that may be, don't take it to their work. Number one, that's a big, huge no. Number two, if it gets to that point that you have to do something, and it's like, let's say a minor child is involved, and it's because of a custody dispute or babysitting thing or whatever they think, just keep it civil. Just do the right thing. Say, hey, this is what's going on. Just want to let you know we were supposed to have this particular time set aside, this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. And if the other party is not having none of that, sometimes you just may want to have someone else come in and as a, I won't say unknowing bystander, but you maybe want to call your local police department or call someone that you really know and trust and honor, and say, hey, look, you may want to come with me to do this. I don't want it to go south. I want to be respectful and everything like that. That's probably the best way to, especially when you get kids involved. That's a whole different level of ballgame, and I've been there. I've gone through 2 divorces in my life when I was a kid, in the struggle that I had to go through when I was a kid, because I was being tossed and turned because one person wanted me more than the other person wanted me, and then next thing, I was like a rag doll, and there's no need for that.
Yeah. Well, I've been chewed out by patients that have shown up half an hour late for their appointment to meet with a physician who had a packed schedule, and had proceeded to stand at the front desk and scream at me, telling me that they will wait as long as they have to. And I say, you can wait all you want, but you're not going to be seen. You need to reschedule.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And he was like in my face. And I was just biting my tongue. I was being respectful. And I just said, sir, I understand your frustration. I'm sorry that you're late. There are other people scheduled. You're going to have to reschedule. I'm not going to reschedule. And he started yelling at me more. I said, you can either reschedule or we're calling security and they can escort you downstairs. I was like this. I was shaking inside.
Oh no.
Oh my God, And I've also dealt with people that were so negative to work with. I mean, negative. They didn't like the company. They didn't like the policies. They didn't like this. They didn't like that. There was nothing positive in what they did. And I just said, hey, look, you really seem to be very unhappy. Well, I don't like this, that, and the other. I said, you have a choice of where you want to work. Are you telling me I should leave? I said, that's not my decision. But when you're spending and I've said this before, when you're spending so much time during your day at a job, I would much rather work somewhere where I enjoyed what I did and not just a job that pays the bills. And sometimes you have to make those tough choices.
Yeah.
And sadly, why do you think the entrepreneurship rate has gone skyrocket with people going, I'd rather work for myself and build my own dreams than somebody else's dreams?
Well, this is why we're together on this journey, ladies, because number one, it is better together because we have fun doing what we're doing. And to be quite honest, we will recognize the burnout before it even occurs because we will create that environment that everyone loves to be where they're at. Because again, if it doesn't go to your values and to your alignment of who you are, a lot of companies don't see that alignment. And I'd like to hear your take on this. Do you believe part of the burnout factor doesn't come into alignment because leadership doesn't recognize that alignment from their perspective? And like I said, I just think that's just one of those invaluable truths that says, hey, if it doesn't go to Sandy's mission, passion, and purpose, then if she's not happy doing what she's doing, same thing with Carla. If it doesn't go into her purpose, then we need to find out a way to get them to where they enjoy what they do and how they do things.
Exactly.
I was just talking to somebody on LinkedIn today, and she worked where I used to work. She wasn't a nurse. She was in the financial section, and I hadn't heard from her in a long time. And she just happened to send me a message on LinkedIn, and I'm like, hey, how's it going? And we were talking about a snowstorm event that we had up here in Atlanta where we were both on the snow team and clearing the snow off my car, laughing about that and, hanging out in a hotel room together. We were just laughing about that. And I said, well, how's it going? And, same old. And I just said, hey, I know that the fertility market is getting really tight in Atlanta because there's new players in the pool, and it's competition, and I said, you got to remember you're still working with the best practice there is. And I said, I'd love to work. I miss working with the people that I worked with, but it's not worth putting up with the traffic and the hours. Yeah. So, you just gotta have that positivity in your day. You gotta love where you're working. You have to. And if you don't, you need to look at why are you where you're at? Because that can contribute to your own burnout.
And again, life is too short. I'm sorry, to spend your whole life being unhappy. What's the point of that? It just doesn't make any sense. And that's why you're right, Carla. You have to make a decision. And if you're so unhappy and you're so stressed out and anxious that you're making yourself sick, why are you still in that position?
And it's not a matter of like being a career coach and taking a test, like what was it, the armed service battery test or something, where they kind of look to see where your skill set was, you're in high school and you're going, I don't know what I want to do when I grow up, So, hey, take this test and you can figure out what you're good at, Just really dig deep and what are your passions? What do you like to do? And build on that. And look at are you truly happy where you are? Or is it just something that's paying the bills? Because if it's just something that's paying the bills, that's no fun.
Yeah, but you see, Carla, what happens is some people get stuck because if they do have financial responsibilities and they fear that if they leave this job and they can't get another one for a length of time, then financially they could end up in trouble. And that's one of the reasons why they stay in the job that they hate. Because
the best time to look for a job is when you got one.
True.
You know?
But sometimes it's hard to do that because, you have to be at work, and that's usually the time that should be at interviews.
Well, yeah, I understand that. I mean, my plan B became my plan A, and I wasn't looking for an exit plan, so to speak, as soon as I took it. But you can figure out what you want to do and figure out how you're going to make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
And how you're going to, maybe it's changing to another job. Maybe it's starting out on your own, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There is a way to do that.
Yes, I agree. But it's a matter of making that decision. And a lot of times people have trouble making that decision.
And changing your attitude.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you are stuck and you have to, because let's face it, you've got bills to pay. Everyone else you have to do that. But you can look at what you really want to do in the future and reverse engineer that to say, what do I need to do to where I can have an exit strategy? If that be another job, doing something on your own,
whatever.
Hello, Jay Pelham. How you doing today, sir?
Hey, doing well on yourselves?
Doing well. So I know you've probably been kind of watching in and that kind of thing. What's your take on burnout, number one, from the corporate perspective? Does corporate have some kind of way to kind of negate that, and what's that responsibility look like, and what does really burnout look like and mean to you?
Yeah, that's a loaded one. So for some context, I'm new to this group. I also have 3 young children. They are 5, 3, and 1. And so that definitely contributes, I think, to burnout sometimes. I personally have a rock star partner, my wife. She's a stay-at-home mom, which is, I can't praise enough the work that she puts into that. And being in lockdown for the last year, I've seen all day firsthand the level of effort that goes into this. And so my appreciation for her has just grown tenfold. Corporate burnout, on the other hand, I think that's a hard one. I think I probably heard some commentary on this earlier, but especially in the tech world, from what I've seen, there's a lot of emphasis on people doing lots of jobs and just super exceeding expectations, being available 24/7, on call for stupid reasons, to be frank, things that you shouldn't even be doing in your personal time. And there's a real big void especially going remote, there's a real big void in understanding those boundaries, and where a lot of people don't feel empowered to set up the boundaries for themselves. And a lot of the leaders aren't in tune to the fact that people need boundaries, people need breaks, people need separation from work. And what I've been seeing in the last year is that people just let that encroach, and people don't feel empowered to stand up for themselves and say, hey, I have 3 kids. At 5:30, I want to be able to sit down with them while they're still young and foster a good family culture. And then I'll happily jump on at 9 o'clock at night if I need to finish whatever you think is so urgent that it can't wait till tomorrow. But don't take that time from me and my family. And I think it's always a two-way street. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people, again, don't feel empowered to do that for themselves. And we need leaders who are listening, not hearing speech, but also seeing and being really in tune to human behavior in general. That I don't see enough of that at the leadership level. In my experience, to just proactively say, hey, Jay, I see you online a lot. Why are you online so much? You don't need to do that. And I think it's unfortunate. A lot of people burn out super early in their careers and look for changes in companies, and there's high turnover, and especially in the tech org, like you lose people with intimate knowledge about the business so quickly because you burn them out early in their careers, and then you have to refill it, and there's a huge financial cost to companies as well as a result of that. And we're not talking enough about it. All the leadership training I've gone through in companies never focuses on that. It's always like, how do you conduct a one-on-one? How do you help your peers? Which is important, but like, it's all very rigid. It doesn't talk about human. It doesn't talk about like approaching conversations like people. Like, what are tools and mechanisms to get people to open up to you about personal things, which I think is something we were talking about earlier, which is really hard to do. How do you get someone to confide in you as their leader? Like, hey, I'm having troubles at home. I need a break, right? Like, that's an art. It's not a framework you can teach to someone to say this message to every single person, and eventually they'll tell you the right thing. There's just not enough practice for that art when we get leaders into organizations. I think that's my 2 cents on it.
I think what you're saying.
And Jay, that's well said. And see, this is what is another motivator for me to create not only the life that I love, but create my mission and passion and purpose with these two great ladies here before you today, and many others too as well, is because this is what the status quo mindset has told me for many years. Because for 35 years, I knew I was working for others, but this is ingrained in the very fiber of who I am. The status quo mindset tells me employees are replaceable, but we here at Bringing Humanity Together embrace this. People are irreplaceable. What's your thoughts on that?
The other risk that needs to be looked at here is a work-life balance. And if you don't have that, then you don't have a life. It's just,
exactly.
Especially when you have a young family, Jay, you need to spend time with your kids now, because before you blink, they're going to be grown up. I mean, my baby is going to be 43 in September.
You don't get that time back.
No. And I'm also very fortunate that my partner lets me know very, 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 very bluntly, like, hey,
well,
get off of work.
Because you'll miss it. And,
exactly.
Get to be teenagers, they don't want to spend as much time with us. They'd rather be with their friends. So the time that we get with our kids and when we establish that good bond is when they're little. I mean, that was the thing that I decided to do with my son, because he has 2 little boys. And unfortunately, they live in Toronto and I live in Vancouver. But when I go there for at least 2 weeks, and I spend most of my time doing stuff with the boys, stuff that they want to do. I don't care what they want to do, okay? They want to go to play mini golf, they want to play baseball, they want to play soccer, they want to play basketball, they want to go for a bike ride. I'll do whatever they want to do. I'm fine with that. They want to bake, they want to do some cooking. I'm happy to do any of those things with them, because I want to spend time with them so that when they look back on when they were young and, had time with their grandmother, then we did things that were fun. And, it's the same with your kids. We, when our kids were little, we spent a lot of time with them because we felt it was important. I mean, they did sports. We always went to their games, and saw them at their games. And we always allowed them to do different kinds of things because it's important that they be active and that they socialize with other kids and so on and so forth. But it doesn't mean you can't be around. And, you miss it because they're going to grow up. And if you haven't spent that time with them, later on, you won't get to.
Yeah.
I mean, now that my kids are adults, it's different because we have a different relationship, and I do spend time with my adult children now. But it's a different kind of relationship than when they were kids, and it's very important for parents not to miss out on that. And that's why employers need to understand that there has to be a life-work balance. We can't live our whole lives at work. I'm sorry, it just can't function that way. We have to have a life. We have to have time to spend with our spouse and with our, our kids, and even sometimes with our own parents, whatever, and certainly with our friends. I mean, we need to have time to socialize. Human beings are very social creatures, which is one of the reasons why this pandemic is so hard on all of us, because it's difficult not being able to see our friends or a lot of our family. So, it's a matter of looking at the big picture, if you will, And the big picture is we need to have a work-life balance. So, working from 9 to 5 or from 8 to 4, it's enough. Time to go home.
We need to work to live and not live to work.
Exactly.
Agreed.
And, I see that a lot in, there's some nursing sites that I follow. And I even commented on them because it said something about if management calls and wants people to pick up extra shifts, something to that. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I wrote on there, hey, it's not your problem. You're not obligated to do that extra shift for them. Whose problem is it? It's not your problem. And all you need to say is, hey, I'm really sorry that you're short on staff, but I have plans. I'm not able to help you. And you don't even have to say, I've got X, Y, and Z. I'm going here, there. They don't even know.
No, they don't.
You have to have that work-life balance. And I'm not sure how old you are, but have you ever heard of Harry Chapin?
I have not.
Okay, so I'm going to post it. Chris, remind me to post this on the Conversations for Humanity. Look up at the song called Cats in the Cradle. And as I was
know the song.
It was just
I know the song. Yep.
But it talks about kids coming into your life and going through life and the dad not having time with his kids. Mm-hmm. And then he gets older. The dad's older, wants to spend time with his kids. And his kids grew up exactly the way he did. He never had time for his children when they were little. And they grew up not having time for their dad. And he says,
oh, wow.
Grew up just like me.
It's a powerful song.
My kids
song.
like me. I won't sing because you don't want to hear me sing. But it's so,
sure we do.
So powerful. And when I hear it now, and I've got life experience of 60-something years behind me, it becomes so true. And I see that when it comes to us living to work and not working to live. When I lived in Europe, I was talking to a girl today who spent a year in France, and I used to live overseas. The Europeans they work to have a life. They don't make it a 24/7 thing to be available. Yep. And when I started working for myself, I had to learn how to set boundaries because I was in that 50+ hour work week getting paid for 40 because I was compassionate about what I did. And then I had to learn how to set boundaries that I'm not going to be available 24/7, that I'm going to take my last ability to schedule a phone call at 4 or 5 o'clock, depending on the day. And after that, it's family time. And if I do something work related, it's because I choose to do it, not because somebody's telling me I have to do that. Of course, what I'm doing, they wouldn't tell me that anyway, but I'm not like my son is in IT and he's available 24/7. That's just kind of the nature of his job. But the flip side of that is if he needs to go get his car serviced or he's sick or something like that, or he needs to be home for a repair person, he can easily work from home. So it's kind of that give and take that he's been able to have work-life balance in what he's doing.
Agreed.
But I think having that work-life balance goes a long way to preventing burnout.
Yeah.
So what is it you do?
I'm in data science and analytics for Walt Disney Company, specifically Disney Streaming. Yeah. So I'm one of the fortunate few that has a tech job with flexibility and things. But even though the industry has certain, like, so to speak, stereotypes, some good, some bad, right? Like always online, always available, plugged in. It doesn't mean the people like within that industry are always abiding by that like principle we just talked about, like managing two people being people, right? Operating as a leader versus a manager, which I think are two very different things, very different skill sets, right? Like
I can imagine it would be difficult to find that kind of balance, especially for global companies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. I think, again, from what I've seen, like, it's great. I think they bring in a lot of smart people at a lot of different roles and organizations, but there's intelligence, there's like technical intelligence, there's IQ, but then there's this whole missing component that a lot of like leader studies talk about, of emotional intelligence, that they don't teach in technical degrees. They don't teach in master's degrees for data science and data analytics, right? Like, I know we're at time, sorry. So I think like that's a big missing gap where we bring in a lot of people who are very, very good at driving projects, driving results, but they're project managers. They're managers of process, right? And like, it takes a whole other level of skills to lead
Your
people
goal
and
is to get the
understand.
project done.
Yeah.
And kind of look at all those other things going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
and so
we need to start looking at those other things because they affect what's happening with the project getting done.
Yeah. And the most successful organizations I've seen have both roles represented by two different people. A project, like leading people, is a full-time job. Leading projects is a full-time job. You can't stretch people across those things and expect them to do both well. So
yes, absolutely. So Jay, since you come on late, I've been wanting to have a great and engaging conversation with you anyway. So if you can stay on for a little bit, I would love to talk with you and everything like that. And as always, Carla, great conversation once again. Thank you so much for leading.
Yeah, thanks for letting me join.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And so, Carla, if you had to call to action, what would it be?
On a personal level, look at what's causing your burnout, what's going on with you and the situations, and getting things off your plate. Figure out what you can do on a personal level, but also on a corporate level. Employers need to be aware of burnout because it costs their business in so many ways.
It does.
So if you want to have a productive business, you've got to talk about burnout and look at what you're doing as a corporation to contribute to the burnout.
Absolutely.
It's got to be a joint approach to this.
Yes.
Because people have got to be happy where they're working.
Absolutely.
Figure out what's going on.
Absolutely. And that's why we're here and building out this great movement, community, organization as we are, because we're here to create a positive environment where people can express their humanity in their own unique way. As always, I appreciate you so much. I know Sandy probably had to jump off real early, but can't wait to speak with you guys on Share and Care with Sandy on Tuesday. And Jay, stay on for a little bit and let's talk. And again, as always, thank you, Carla, for being on this journey with me.
You're welcome.
All right. See everybody.